What's up, everyone? How we doing tonight? Was a bit of a weird day, at least for myself. Can I get a quick little sound check and visual check? Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys hear me? Awesome. But yes, definitely one of those days where you ended up in positive or you ended up even break even, I'd say. You did a good job. Of course, there were plenty of opportunities. That's not what I'm denying at this very specific moment. It was just a day that was very hard to navigate. Personally, for myself, I am lucky to have ended up going positive. I think I told you guys in my model and my risk management, always have one final opportunity with very low risk, and it is the home run opportunity. So it is that one single trade that one times out of 10 gets me the whole day back and more. So definitely a high R, high risk play, but with lower initial capital risk. And today it did work out. So I managed to end the day in positive, but I was not doing too well. And we'll look at it right from a daily chart as expected. Right, a continuation to the upside after a very aggressive move from the previous day. So after a large range day, we do expect some lower range, right? A smaller range day, which still ran 298 handles, right? So still a day with a lot of opportunity in terms of capital to be made. On a daily, not much for us, right? What were we looking for? Of course, the fulfill of this gap to showcase that we want to be invalidating it to later head to our buy side objectives, right? Very straightforward stuff. But you had no other really higher time frame level other than that, and of course, the order block, which aligns with the high of said fair value gap, and you could utilize consequent encroachment of that, which pretty much we did not reach today, right? Those were the objectives for me if we're talking on a more specific level. So I am going to mark out this order block, and we're going to dive down first to the 15-minute, right? Our intraday time frame. What do we see? Let me actually go in replay mode once again, or actually let's just put it historical. Why not? So we can look at the levels. If we look right here from the daily open, what did we do? Well, if we basically bring our attention to 9:30 and more specifically also 8:30, we had PPI and unemployment claims today at 8:30, our high impact news event. You'll notice that beforehand you couldn't frame anything but manipulation. Consolidation is the word I was looking for. That big blue box you see is our daily fair value gap. Let me just move it to a gray box, which I do need to change the visibility on that very quickly. Let's do 15-minute. And if we head back to that level, you can see that all we could frame up to the news was consolidation, right? We were accumulating, waiting for manipulation. So at this point, at the point of New York Open, right, which is 9:30 right here, I was bullish, 100%. But before we can go up, we need to go down. Why? Because we have only consolidated for now. We have no clear low put in for the day. So if I'm going to be bullish, I need to see some sort of low. Also, if we look at the news, you'll notice some SMT and some very key SMT, right? And of course, there was SMT before, as well as you can see here from the current high of day on NASDAQ at that point in time. But we refer to the news SMT because we understand that the news is a key area in time. So when you see SMT form at this specific time of the news, it is of higher importance, if we can say it like that, than anything else. From that point on, I would be looking for one thing and one thing only, which is a raid. More so, you also had SMT on the lows, which later got invalidated. But at the time of the news, there was SMT on both sides of the range, pretty much, and showcasing the same thing. Of course, ES being more bullish and NASDAQ being more bearish. But even then, you have SMTs on both sides of the range. That is your confirmation that we are indeed consolidating. And when we are consolidating, I've always been consistent in saying you're looking for one thing and one thing only, a clear raid on liquidity. If we look at that current day's liquidity, what do you have? Well, very simple. Current low of day. That's all you have. You have the sell side liquidity below the consolidation that forms basically the current low of day. And if we look at ES at that current low of day, right, I don't have the key times in the historical mode. Let me just add that so we can have our nice separators. If you look at the liquidity right here, you can notice that ES also dug back down even deeper than NASDAQ did. So they flipped pretty much. And that showcases some lower time frame SMT, which personally, I don't look at 1 minute SMT from the day before. I don't see the value in it. And of course, there will be stats posted about this in the future in the Rice Statistics app as to why it is low probability, but I don't use this specifically. The truth is, you had your accumulation overnight. Why? Because we were waiting for the news release. After the news release, of course, we got confirmation that we were consolidated. You had a clear rate to the downside and then a move up. The reason why I'm saying it's so hard, well, today was so hard, is not because price was hard to read, right? Everybody and their mother posted that price was going up today. Buy side objectives. Everybody was feeling so proud. Yes, if you did not see buy side objectives, there was an issue. And of course, if you're learning, sure, we can talk about that. But the truth is, what you had is a bullish trend on the daily, right? I'll go back to the top here. A very aggressive move to the upside, barely reaching the fair value gap. You had to keep going up. It is the weekly expansion, right? We always talk about weekly profiles and news and how they affect price, but I'm looking for the real move now because CPI formed what I wanted to see. So now I want to see it continue going up, right? Going into tomorrow, I'm not talking on this right now because I'm not even going to be trading tomorrow. So there's no point in me giving an opinion on that note specifically. But just looking at today, what was harder was the fact that it was so high resistance. And I attribute that mainly to the fact that we kept making SMT while going to the upside. So ES was very much more bearish than NASDAQ was. We definitely flipped at this point in time, which led to some very awkward delivery, right? You can see it very clearly in a 15-minute chart. And let me just remove here these lower time frame levels for now. You can see it once we look at this gap. So concentrating purely on a 15-minute for now. What do we see? Well, we did our manipulation we anticipated, taking out this level. Of course, we took a lot of time, but we had to form an intraday swing point at this level. Then we expanded higher, creating a fair value gap. That is your displacement. But then you traded back into that fair value gap and that order block for hours, right? All the way up until pretty much just before lunch, more precisely the 11:50 to 12:10 macro. So it took a while for us to get out of that fair value gap order block combo, and that led to a lot of possibilities to get stopped out, a lot of trades. For example, for myself, I went long and got stopped out here. I call it break even. It was a tiny loss, but I got stopped out here. But then my idea was still valid, so I'm still looking for another trade that is the same thing. And then we sweep this low, and then we go all the way up, create the current high of day. That's an opportunity, but then we have a super deep retracement, way more than we need, before continuing our expansion. So days like these, it's very simple, right? If you get stopped out here, you got stopped out on SMT, right? A lot of divergence today, so it's going to be a shit ton of lines. I just want to apologize in advance for this. But you had even more SMT. This was the color I was trying to change. Let's just make this purple. Why not? That's our rate. So you had also SMT at this point in time, right? Which was basically the SMT that formed the impulse price, the impulse swing point that formed our aggressive move to the upside. So that was your distribution after a lot of high resistance moves. If we go down to the 1 minute, it's going to be choppy, right? Whenever you're consolidating on the 15-minute, as we just saw, right? If I just go back, if you're consolidating in the 15-minute, on the 1 minute, it is pure mayhem, back and forth, search and destroy, right? What were we doing? Took out buy side, to go take out sell side, to go take out some more buy side, to go take out some sell side, to go take out some buy side, go back down to take out some sell side, to then go up, right? So as I said, a lot of back and forth. Truth is, on days where you see it's like this, because you could have noticed that before too long, right? You're here at 930. What do you have at 930? Well, you're looking for a Judas swing. You have that Judas swing lower. From this point on, I'm looking for longs. Right here, we formed a breaker block. My entry model is starting to appear. What else am I looking for when I'm looking for setup? Well, another thing, I am looking for a PD array I can utilize. Inversion fair value gap right here. That's a setup. But as I stated previously, I needed more, right? This is a loss right there. You can see it, right? Because I'm never going to be taking profit at these levels. So we can look at it for sure. I tend to not look at the losses because there's nothing to review in them other than your personal performance. The truth is, unless you had your stop here, which to me is never going to be a trade, right? Well, that was a loss. And if you're lucky, maybe you went break even, or maybe you trailed your stop up in some manners when you saw it consolidating. Truth is, those are ifs and buts. And if I was perfect, I would have done this. But when you're in the live markets, it's very hard to come to decisions like that. And you don't have a lot of time when one candle does, what is that? 30 points, right? Which actually that one was pretty standard. But if you look right here, we had a 100-point candle today. So definitely very high resistance conditions, and that leads to a lot of losses, right? During these conditions, best thing you can do, stick to the macros. If you notice these types of conditions, and they are to be expected because it was the day after a very large range day. So you would anticipate not that it doesn't move as it should, or not that it doesn't go where it should, just that it will do it, engineering a lot more liquidity, which means a lot of high resistance conditions equals deep retracements. It's going to be slow to go in line with bias, slow to distribute, and it's going to have very deep retracements. And as you can see from the result of the day, that's what you had, right? We ended the day up 300 handles. So it did what it was supposed to. It just did it very, very slow. If we look, we're still within the daily fair value gap, right? So any long out of here is aligned with bias. And if we look at every single unicorn, well, there is another fair value gap here. Now, this unicorn is more so of a continuation model, which I haven't spoken of in a while. And that would have actually reached some sort of possible objective. I'm not going to speak too deep on it because we don't need to overcomplicate this thing. But yeah, it reached 2R. So that would have been a possible continuation model. Not something I speak of a lot because I don't see the value. You're never going to be looking for continuations if you had the right entry, right? So sometimes the only possible trade is a continuation, but it is not worth the time or the investment to gain the understanding needed to reach such level. If we keep going, what else do we have? Well, there is a bunch of SMT here, right? Definitely. I see SMT here, which means that we do indeed have a breaker block somewhere. So, well, this is a breaker block. Well, no swing high formed. I would have not considered that. I would have seen that as consolidation. This point, this on ES is a breaker block, right? Well, this is just a breaker block no matter what. So you have swing low, swing high, broke the low, but we then invalidated the breaker actually. You see, it's a lot of high resistance, a lot of hard things to filter. And pretty much from what I saw, there was no clear opportunity that gave you, right, that was a nice entry. So for example, we can talk about trying to trade this move. But the truth is, this whole move has no clear entry with my specific model, right? So if I'm in this move, it's because I deviated from my model. And that's not something I'm willing to do. But if there are trades, I am guessing there are losses due to the high resistance fact of it. Up until lunch, it wasn't low resistance, if we can say it like that. Yes, the 1050 to 1110 macro formed a lot of nice movement, right? We started by going up, then going a tiny bit down, which could have led to some opportunities, and then decided to go up. But see, it's back and forth. The 950 unicorn. You are talking of, let me just see it, the 950 unicorn. There is no unicorn there. Up until, well, actually, wait. We break above this high, forming the breaker block, and then you have an inversion fair value gap at this point. Let's see the bigger picture. What is this? Consolidation. That's it. Why are you trying to find a trade in these conditions? That is the whole mindset behind this review. My goal is to trade expansion. My goal is to trade distribution. Now, will a new student who looks at it mechanically, right? He's trying to build experience and trying to build understanding. He's going to trade this mechanically, and he's going to say, okay, well, look, we formed a breaker block right here, right? As soon as we traded above this, what is my first inefficiency aligning with this? Inversion fair value gap. Do I care that it's one tick? Well, actually, it might not even be one. Yes, it is one. Do I care that it's one tick? No, not at all. Well, actually, I see this now, and we actually invalidated this one. So this is not even a possible entry. Let me check. Fair value gap below, that is way too deep for me to consider this a unicorn of this. 948 I'm talking about. This is not a breaker block. It is a lower time frame breaker block, but I don't trade lower time frame breaker blocks. This is just a bearish order block that failed. For a breaker block, I need a range. A range is formed from a swing point to a swing point. This is a swing low, sure. This is not a swing high. If you want more help with breaker blocks, just go look at my under the projects tab where I did the study about standard deviations of breaker blocks. There's a whole Notion document with a bunch of examples of breaker blocks and actually very detailed graphics of how I establish a breaker block. So definitely that is one that is going to help if ever you're having a harder time with this. Basically, from all I see is that you didn't have a setup or it was a failed setup. You know what? Losses happen to everybody, but these high resistance conditions, they come and get me because they do what they're supposed to do. They just do it very slow and stopping you out 3 times before your target, which means that as a risk manager, right? Because being a trader has multiple aspects, but as a risk manager, it is more worth my time to get out of the markets instead of getting stopped out 5 times and then getting the win. That result, right? That P&L is not worth the damage in my consistency and the damage in my equity curve. It was a hard one this morning. Had 2 losses before finally getting, as I said, I basically traded the 1150 to 1210 macro. I can speak on it if you guys want. Very simple. I just traded the unicorn. All right. If you look at this, we formed SMT at this low, which means that as soon as we're trading above this high, this is now our breaker block. And you can see, right, aligning PD array right there in your face, entry here. And if you look at the result, definitely one for the ages. So stop loss rate below the low of this order block. Why? Inversion fair value gap, order block, and low hanging fruit right after the low resistance liquidity that led to a premium. And if you look even further, yes, it did work. Why do I not want to speak on this? Because it takes a lot of fucking experience to be able to do this. And as I told you guys, I didn't say I had a good day. I said I got lucky. I do allow for some luck in my trading. I had my 2 trades. They did not work out. I got stopped out on a short very early. I got greedy, was trying to basically flip my bias to look for a short. And then once I got back on side looking for a long, I got stopped out because I trailed aggressively. If I entered just here, right? I'm looking at this specifically. If I entered just here and had a wide stop, and of course you got stopped out on SMT here, that's just very sad. There's nothing you can do about it. But truth is, well, not even a wide stop. I just got greedy because I held through this, but I had a very wide stop. I believe I was letting it go all the way down here. So I was looking for definitely a very big move. This was just a trade that should not have been, right? That was just me being salty that I've been watching price for an hour and a half, and now I want to be a part of the market. And you guys, we all know, whenever you want something to happen in the markets, you get fucked. That's what happens, right? I'm not perfect. I do still make errors, and today was one of them. But the real power is not leaving those errors mark out your P&L. The biggest difference between a successful trader and an unsuccessful trader is not his setups. It's the risk management. It's how you look at price, how you react to things like these. So yes, I do make mistakes for the sake of transparency. I do talk about them. I don't show you guys results because what's the point? I can send you guys, I'm up 3 grand on the day, but I made mistakes. I didn't have to tell you all, but I think it's a valuable view for you guys to have about the reality of trading and how even after a year of being full time in the markets, I still make a shit ton of mistakes. But the biggest difference is that I am still able to be profitable because I don't blow an account on a mistake. I lose 0.5%. And then on the second mistake, I lose 0.25%. And sometimes I have good wins, and sometimes I have bad wins where I got lucky. And sometimes I have good losses, and sometimes I have bad losses. Yeah, as you say, AR, real talk. It's very hard sometimes to be in this space and to talk about these sorts of things, but I really do think it's a valuable insight for you guys. Not that you can learn from my mistakes, because truth is you're going to make them yourselves. You just have to. It's part of the game. Every trader has to fuck up to know that it's a fuck up, right? To realize that and change some things. But it's a valuable insight for you guys to have the reality of trading and how hard this shit is, and that we do have some very rough days. But truth is, you can't let it affect you. You got to think long term. And long term, I got to think that last week covered this day and very much more. I could lose 20 trades and I'd still be fine. So keeping the bigger picture makes it easier on the nerves, if you ask me. But this 1150 to 1210 trade, was it the best setup? No, it was a B setup. I am allowed to take B setups. I grade my setups A minus, A plus. On a regular day, I trade from A to A plus. When I have my last home run bullet, I basically have 2 opportunities in the day, and then I have a half risk home run bullet, which means a last chance, pretty much. And those 3 trades have to be completely different trade ideas, except for the last bullet. So that's pretty much me trying something, it not working. Sometimes I do get another opportunity. Sometimes I just miss it. And then I have another opportunity for things like getting stopped out by SMT. Because of that, I did take that trade. And as you can see from the result, it went well. As I said, it doesn't always go well. I would say about a quarter of them go well. So 25% of these last bullets. And if you look at the result, I get about 10 to 15 R on them, and I win once out of 4 times I do those. That is profitable. So because of that, I allow myself, even though it takes a hit on my consistency a tiny bit, because instead of losing to basically a maximum of 1% in a day, I bump it up to 1.25%, which, as I said, right, a little insight into my risk management. There are a lot of rules to risk management and a lot of different things. As a beginner, I'd recommend keep it simple, right? Just risk the same amount of money on every trade. And when you're a drawdown, risk down until you're back at that level. That is the biggest recommendation I can make. And as always, guys, am I going to speak about this short? No, who the fuck saw this coming, right? You knew you were going to do 100 handles and 1 down move. Could you have traded a retracement? Yes, you would have gotten stopped out here, 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 here. Oh, once again here, then here. Oh, then you would have gotten greedy because you're gambling, right? I'm not going to talk about gambles. To me, there was no high probability opportunity today. And that's just it. We had a beautiful move, beautiful result. My model just did not provide today, unfortunately. And I'm pretty confident in saying that most models did not provide today. Do you guys have any questions, whether it's about the day or the stuff we just talked about? Maybe you have questions about my personal trading. I wouldn't mind answering them. As I said, I don't like sharing results consistently, but I'll gladly answer any questions and transparency is in the mindset. I attach my real name to you guys. You got to understand that too. Everything I say is attached to my name, and I take that with a lot of fucking seriousness. To me, my name means a lot. My pleasure, Stan. I'm gonna give you guys a second, see if any questions pop up. I don't see any. Well, you guys were a blast. I had my little rant after my hard trading day. I appreciate you all for staying here and listening. Hope it can get some insight into you guys and be useful. You guys have a great night. We'll see each other, well, tomorrow. I'll be active in chat, but if not, we'll see each other on Sunday. Good luck trading tomorrow if you are. Y'all have a great rest of your nights. Goodbye, guys.